Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting, Racing Competition Technology Community conference organized in this Moto Valley Fest 2021. My name is Marco Congiu. If you are here, it's because you love motorsports like I do, like all the guests in all its forms, because it's not only emotions, it's also a technological platform to develop new technologies, new aspects. I'm not alone in this 45 minutes. I have Franco Cevolini, President of Energica, Davide Barana, Technical Director Ducati Corse, from Red Bull Ring in Austria for Formula One Grand Prix. We have Franz Tost, Mr. Franz Tost, Alpha Tauri team principal. We also have Nicola Scimeka, Wacom founder, and Leonardo Galante, Lamborghini Motorsport technical responsible. Davide, I would like to ask you this question first. So for Ducati as a company, is it important to have a racing team, and does it have an effect on all passionate and purchases? So aside marketing aspects and brand promotion, of course, and they are the reasons why car manufacturers decide, or vehicle manufacturers decide to take part in this racing competitions. Of course, it has an effect from a technological point of view. This is particularly true if we consider our history. In the 80s, with Superbike, Ducati went back to race, and that was the driver which allowed to the Superbike model sold in a serial production to always be updated and competitive and, of course, highly technologically advanced. In the recent history, starting from the year 2000, when we entered the MotoGP competition, and we invested a lot on our racing team, and we grew a lot. And we closed the loop of the technological effect and impact, because we continued with the Superbike, MotoGP, with the prototype vehicles, so with the greatest freedom and possibility to try and experiment. This represents our main test bench, and which has a direct impact on Superbike, which is, as a category, bound to several characteristics. And in general, the Panigale V4R, the serial product, something that true passionate for motors can buy, because this product is really close to what we use on track. And it's not just a story, as you might think, but it's a reality. In the motorbike field, we have a great advantage, that is the motorbikes that are manufactured for sales are really close to the motorbikes used in the different racing. So in MotoGP is 157 kilos, and engine 260 horsepower. So not far away from the motorbike that is sold. So it's not 10 times 5. So the two products are really similar, the one sold and the one used in the races. So it means that you can test, the different aspects, the different contents. Our technical department is really working hand by hand and side by side with the production and the development department, and sometimes the racing team and department also represents, like an incubator of talents. So my production technician is a friend, is a colleague. I've been sharing my desk with him for a long time. So it is a true value for Ducati, how the Linea can influence the serial product, maybe with some spoilers with what we saw in MotoGP. We influence in a relevant way the Panigale V4R. If you know this motorbike, it was linked to the 2 cylinders and then moving to 4 cylinders. It is due to the MotoGP experience. So this, of course, increased the performance in the superbike or the other motorbikes. As for aerodynamics, we were the first ones to introduce the specific characteristics and of course, racing motorbikes, all the different regulations, introducing important restrictions on the different developments, but on the serial product, you do not have any restriction compared to the racing world. So you have spoilers, that are similar to what was used in 2015. So let's move to 4 wheels. I would like to invite Mr. Galante, and I would like to ask him to tell us something about the championships in which Lamborghini is involved. How important are for Lamborghini competitions, dedicated to clients with the Super Trofeo, for example? A couple of words from an historical point of view. Lamborghini has always been close to the competition world from the 90s with the engineering, and in the 2000 with its GT and the different GT races. But it was only in the last 12 years that Lamborghini decided to invest in its company and then created the racing team that was developed over the last few years. It includes 50 people, and it was developed with great success in different areas. The customer racing. So we develop our cars in platforms that are close to road cars, so GT cars. We have right now 3 platforms on which we develop our competition. The Super Trofeo, it's a single brand extended on the Huracan platform, GT3 with its evolutions, and representing the championship, where we have to compete with other manufacturers. And so from a small reality, we were able to embrace the international landscape. And then a third platform dedicated to the customer with track days, with extreme vehicles that today we call hypercars. So our mission is focusing on the client, on the customer, because motorsports, in our interpretation, is a marketing tool. And so it has to be developed based on the needs of our customers. On the super sport cars that we produce for the serial production track represents a natural evolution for our customers. So we want to have them close by so that we can express with our cars their expectations. And then our platforms allow us to express our technological expertise, in particular on a platform that are free from homologation restrictions. So like GT3, so with the hypercar, with the Super Trofeo, we can develop several concepts. We can give an important impulse to the style that is very important to us, and as an impact factor for our customers, we can also develop other technological labs that can transfer this performance on the road vehicles. But it's also an opposite direction, because we take some ideas from motorsports into the road vehicles. In R&D department at Lamborghini, we can develop some pragmatic approaches in designing a car. We develop teamwork, so together we work and develop and design a car, bear in mind a specific goal and target, because in competitions the goal is clear and must be clear for everyone. You mentioned an object of desire for motorsports passionate. You referred to a hypercar. If we want to refer to the endurance category, it's a new section trying to put together WEC and IMSA, so the overseas competitions. How can Lamborghini be attracted by this type of project, knowing that two other brands of the group, Audi and Porsche, will start competing in this category at the 24 hours at Le Mans? And if there is also a dream called Formula One, where at the beginning of the 90s, Lamborghini was already there, present. So our approach is to have customer racing, a pyramid approach. We like to move ourselves in a comfortable way, but we always want to raise our bar. We want to keep on evolving. The GT3 today is our highest category. And we, of course, look at other categories with great interest. LMTH, they represent an interesting evolution for us, because as Lamborghini, we always pushed on an appealing product, extreme, no compromises. We always wanted to surprise our customers. And so the evolution from GT3 to a higher category, like top-down, a pyramidal approach, that's what attracts our interest. But of course, these categories can compete in the American or in our markets, but they can also reach WEC, which means Le Mans. And all our customers want to reach Le Mans, and we want to add part of the story to Lamborghini in the competitions where all the others already met their success. So Formula One represents a goal for many competitors, for many manufacturers, but I must say that in our case, LMDH and the approach to prototype is the approach that is close to us, and it represents a natural evolution of the racing team and what the racing team today can turn into the short term. So we are assessing, we are evaluating this type of vehicle because we want to take part in the top class categories of all the races in the world. So can't wait to see you on track. Mr. Cevolini, you were among the supporters of this switch, this passage from the Motor Valley to the electric. So what was your starting point and what were the steps of this evolution? The transformation is done because Energica is 10 years old, and it was created based on the experience of the CRP group with over 50 years of experience in the motorsport industry by providing technologies. We launched some innovative products like the rapid casting titanium alloy, with which we created the first gearbox for Minardi in the 2000s, and then at the end of 1996 we introduced the 3D print. At that time it was something not known in Italy, and we wanted to use it in the motorsports and in particular Formula One industry. This allowed us to develop the technology to raise the bar. So we use a range of materials that is extremely performing and that is now able to offer a production technology which allows us to create components, very high-level components, both for the racing and for the road sector. And now they are also used in the biomedical field or in the aeronautical field. We started in 2010 with a racing product, an e-bike, racing bike, which was the result of an experience that we had some years before with combustion engines. We took part to this competition with the Fantech motor. We recreated the full motorbikes, and then we created some 125 motorbikes for Honda. So based on this experience, we created an e-bike. We took part in the championship of that time. We won them, and as my colleague from Ducati said before, we created later on a serial product, because you start from the racing world and then you take this technology and you transfer it into the road product, and the gap is closer between the e-bike and the serial product, that is the road Ego bike, because the racing Ego derives from the road model, and so this similarity is even more highlighted. So the fact of collecting data from professional drivers and developing on track, so under safety conditions, but pushing technology to the extreme, this is something very important, because you can refine the product that is then manufactured for the everyday market. So yes, we were the supporters of an evolution, and we contributed to this evolution, but it also it is rooted in the technology and the experiences, because we already had it in-house. So it was a quick process. Other players are now getting close to the market, and as it happens, they have to run after technology that, is really up to date and state of the art for us. So it's very important to underline this excellent, Italian excellent Alpha Tauri, this Faenza team that was created as Minardi, and then beginning in 2000 it became Toro Rosso. Since 2019, Alpha Tauri, a clothing brand that is linked to the Red Bull field. Franz Tost, I would like to ask you, you are a satellite team in a way for Red Bull, but you are able to choose your pathway. So how are you dealing with this competition in Formula One? How are you getting ready for this change in 2022 from the regulation point of view?
We built up quite a competitive team in Faenza, and I must say that this Motor Valley and this area over there is operating on a very high standard. We are really very happy with the suppliers from this area because there are so many famous trademarks there, like Ferrari, like Lamborghini, like Ducati, Dallara, and so on. And that means, especially from the mechanical side, there are fantastic companies over there, and they are in many cases even better than in England. Therefore, we are more than happy to be there. We built up a good infrastructure in Faenza thanks to Red Bull. We have currently around 480 people working there. And this year we have got a competitive car. We are fifth currently in the Constructors' Championship. That means everything is running quite in a good way. Regarding now next year, as you mentioned already, there's a new regulation coming, which means that all the teams have to build a completely new car. And the concept for this new car is more or less finished. We started with this project already at the beginning of 2020. And 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting regarding the concept of the car, and it looks good. And I think that we will also expect that we will also be quite competitive next year. We have to work now on the aerodynamic side to finalize everything. And then we are looking forward to this new regulation in 2022.
Voi arrivate da un 2019 che vi ha visto andare a podio in due.
So we saw this car in two occasions, in 2019, the Grand Prix in Germany and Brazil, and in 2020 you had your first victory, and the second victory was after the success of Vettel in 2008. How is it going in 2021, and how do you think you would be in the next season?
First of all, it was our second victory. We won already the first race with Sebastian Vettel in 2008. Also in Monza, it seems to be our favorite racetrack. And last year we won with Pierre Gasly there. It was also quite an interesting race. And I must say, whether we can win this year a race is another question. We have a competitive car. We finished already on the podium. We have two really good drivers with Pierre Gasly, who has a lot of experience in the meantime, who is very fast. And with Yuki Tsunoda, we have a 20-year-old Japanese newcomer. And he is also making great steps forward, good progresses. And last week here, he scored the point. And I expect him... or both drivers to be in qualifying 3. That means within the first 10. And of course, I expect from both drivers to score points because we want to defend the 5th position, the Constructors' Championship against Alpine and Aston Martin.
Grazie mille, Franz.
Thank you very much, Franz. Engineer Shoemaker, I would like to hear your point. After Formula One, we start speaking about championships, which are less probably rewarded, but they can be interesting. I refer to the scooters championships. I've analyzed the e-scooter championships. We absolutely see an increase of these championships. So I ask you to tell us what do you think when you see these e-scooters racing on the streets, on the roads, they are becoming part of our equipment, and it might be closer to our young generations than it seems. Yes, that's true. The motorsports has always moved forward in the sector of new technologies. So now that we are in this championship, we are almost at the end of this revolution. There is an electrification, and we have new competitions like Formula Extreme, ITCR, which took place last weekend. A series of new championships where we can apply new technologies on the road cars. There are also a series of other aspects, such as sustainability and connectivity, which also pass through the motorsport. There is always the e-scooters are exploding, literally. Another means of mobility called last mile products in the urban mobility. They are literally exploding. If we look at numbers, they are literally exploding. Within the next years, I won't say they will be replacing cars, but if you look at the statistics, they are moving fast. And with a lot of new users, which are very young people, but also if you look at the people who use the scooters, are also older people as well. So all this help us to improve the mobility in cities. And some people had the idea of creating a racing platform where scooters can participate, and the main objective is to sensitize, to raise awareness in among users about the sustainability and the importance of this subject, rather than create, and also to create a sport that is quite accessible, because it's not expensive to ride on an e-scooter or to use it in cities and to run with it. So that's the basis of this idea of creating the mobility platform, where we start with the main category, the Formula One of the scooters, which is a scooter that we are developing from scratch mainly. It's almost like inventing a totally new sport from scratch. It's like 50 years ago where the go-kart was invented. In this moment, there is a new means, a new tool that must have small wheels. You can drive it standing, so it's very similar to the e-scooter you can use on the street, but with some new characteristics. We developed the tool, we are producing it. We carried out many tests, even with pilots from MotoGP and other sports, because sometimes we don't even know the profile of a pilot. It's probably somebody, the winner would be somebody doing freestyle or MotoGP, we don't know. So we will start with a monobrand with the same models, and it's like MotoGP is free. So we will have a series of brands competing and participating directly on the field and developing their own products. That's the objective. The objective you were talking about, and the president, the representative of Ducati talked about, the means we see on the streets are very, very dangerous because they have small wheels. The speed is 25 kilometers per hour, which is too low for a road, and it's too fast for a cycling path. So we need to have the right tools, the right barriers, to develop the right products, and to be able to make it consumer products. In this moment, there is a lot of interest. Many cities are interested in hosting these competitions, which will take place on the city roads, on a square. It's like a car mainly. But it's smaller in size. So the city manifested their interests, and also the players of macro mobility, the suppliers, spare parts suppliers and product suppliers, and also service suppliers, providers. And on one side, it's very interesting because it's a new product. It invests a lot in sustainability, so it will be made of natural and sustainable materials, and the competitions will be quite interesting as well. So the point is that young people, for probably 15-year-old people, will be interested in using this product. They will have a new idol thanks to a new championship. Recently, I had the possibility to try, during a test in Vallelunga, a Veloster RTCR Hyundai, a tourist car, 960. So it's a kind of plane on wheels. So it represents one of the most popular articles. So we have seen the e-bike, the sport bike. So the sport bikes are becoming more and more electric and electrified. So I start from you, Engineer Cevolini, and I would like to expand the debate to the others as well. Is there something we will regret from the old sport motor, where you could hear the sound, the roaring of the engine? Is there something that can replace the sound or can simulate the sound? Or the purists will take over, even if purist is such a strong word, and we won't hear the roaring of the engines again. The Motor E is a championship that started 3 years ago. The last competition was 3 years ago, was in Assen on an iconic circuit, and we compete with Moto 2 and 3. So the card we played together with Dorna and Ita was to invest, to target a category that could compete with the others without fearing confrontation. In the world of racing, at the end of the day, what counts is the time. If you're faster than the others, you win, and then the show. And we managed to demonstrate that, of course, at the beginning it was difficult, but we managed to demonstrate that this show is there, the format is the right one, and our motorbikes, well, considering that we started with this initiative 3 years ago, our initiatives have nothing to envy to the, our motorbikes have nothing to envy to the endothermal engines. We hear the sound. Of course, the others think that our bikes don't have any sound. But when a motorbike moves, has a typical sound like the turbine, a turbine. When you are in a city or when you are in the traffic, in the normal traffic, everybody turns around and look at the motorbike and recognizes this motorbike to be very interesting. And I can reassure you that driving this motorbike is really very, very nice. You can find everything that you look for in a motorbike, the rapidness of response, gear engine, and finding the right moment to turn. There is a series of distractions that are probably have to be linked with the inefficiency of the engine. The gas, waste gas is probably waste of the endothermal engine. What counts is the competition at the end of the day, the challenge, and the show, because the formats show a motorbike that needs to be sold to the public. So we found a great response. It's a young category. We had a great response from the audience. And when I was in Assen, I said that after racing in a MotoGP, it's the audience which was present kept on watching the GP with interest. So we have a good feedback from the people who are passionate of competitions and of newcomers who see in the competition of e-bikes, new means interconnected means they can interact with, having a series of tools that the young people are used to use, such as apps, social media, the mobile communication technologies. Engineer Barani, what do you think? What's your position? Of course, the electric part has points of great interest. As my previous speaker said, the electric motor has typical features which are quite particular. It's something that it's important to consider, and also the linearity, which couples perfectly with power, with very powerful motorbikes and modulability and conditions of extreme bending when the motorbike goes on a closed circuit. On the other side, the difference with the traditional motor is typical, the roaring of the engine, first of all. I don't think it really makes sense to try to simulate or to create something similar. I think the e-motor is something that will be more and more different. It will have its own dimension, and it won't need to simulate anything else. It is clear that if we reason on the point of view of other features, many customers will choose a motorbike because they see in it an object of competition, something to have fun. It's something that help us not to just to move from one point A to a point B, but it's something fun. It involves you. And this involvement is created also by the roaring of the engine and by some features, some imperfect feature like the four-stroke engine. If you see the L gear thermal engine is perfect, and other engines need other components to be used. So changing gears sometimes is really annoying. So of course there are a series of questions you may ask yourself, and this is also part of the cultural translation that requires, of course, some time for it to be understood properly. Engineer Galanti, what can you say on Lamborghini point of view? Electrification is, of course, a process that is going on quite in a structured way, and it's also an irreversible phenomenon. In competition, it means to entertain the audience, to make them have fun. So it means to develop an emotion. The first question is, what's an emotion? How can it be developed? How can the emotion of a pilot be developed? And these are the same two faces of the same medal. If the emotion comes from direct acceleration, of course, the e-cars may represent a great practice because they have a lot of technology that we can put at the disposal of the user to make the car idoneous for every driving condition. If emotion means to create a sound or a vibration, it is part of our world of the endothermal engines, and the engine will develop a sound which respects the technology and doesn't need to reproduce the old roaring. The second phase of the second side of this medal is given by the show, by the audience watching. Those who come to see a competition, they want to see people overtaking another vehicle. They want to see certain technology. They want to see probably technology that can later on be used on cars, on the other cars that we see on the street. Today, this vibration is given by the sound of cars. In this sense, we should probably develop technologies that can be capable of entertaining the the people, because in the absence of a sound, this can probably destroy the show, if you want. So using technological or digital platforms that can incentivize, promote the entertainment of participants is something that remains an open debate. And we, as builder manufacturers, we should do our utmost to involve our customers and the consumers. Franz, I come to you because a category that received the highest feedback on the sound, as far as the sound is concerned, and starting from 2014, the Formula One became hybrid, and during the 2001, the sound of the engines came back in a persistent way compared to how it used to be in 2014. What do you think about that?
You know, that's the part of the future, part of the development. Formula One is the peak of motorsports, and of course, we had to get rid of the V10 or of the V12, which produced a fantastic sound. When I remember back of the Matra V12 or Ferrari V12 engine, yeah, it was really the golden age of the music at the racetrack. But now we have the hybrid engine in there. It's a V6 turbocharged engine, but to show the sustainability with two energy recovery systems, we have the MGOH, where you can produce energy from the exhaust gases, and we have the MGOK, motor generator kinetic, where you get the energy when the driver is braking from the crankshaft, and which helps them to break down the engine. And with this energy, the battery will be filled. And drivers can get from the battery around 160 to 170 horsepower, which means it's a lot. Formula One, of course, has to think to the future. And with this system, we have a good chance to survive, I would say, if we find a sustainable fuel. Because if we have a fuel which is synthetic, which does not produce any carbon dioxide, then I think this system which we are using currently have a good future, as well as the electronic cars, the electric cars. Yeah, but I personally would prefer to have such a hybrid engine with a synthetic fuel, because when you come at home, the battery is at least half full or even more, and you do not need to charge everything, because we must not forget that the energy you need to get this electric and to get this energy must be produced from somewhere. Yeah? And if you see nowadays that they use carbon and other other materials which are not good for the emission, then I don't see the big advantage. Nevertheless, we in Formula One are working very hard to develop this synthetic fuel to show the sustainability and to become successful in the future on this way, because once more, I think that this hybrid engine has also quite a good future, and the rest then we will see how fast the Asian manufacturers will develop the electronic cars.
Ingegner Shoemaker, invece, secondo lei?
Engineer Shoemaker, so the motorsport always develop technologies to see something that it's not on the market, something that it's not there on the road, and then it's developed in the motorsports. So noise is, of course, very important, but also technology and the emotions, perceived in a race, you can take them somewhere else. These, I remember remember they were saying the pit lane, the diesel Audi didn't produce any noise, but then it became an iconic car. It won all the prizes, and then it was immediately appreciated. So if you can organize an electric championship of Formula E or TCR, if you can do that, then you have competitive races, you have emotions, everything that you have within the motorsports field, you can find it anyway, even without noise. So involvement, participation, passion from the audience. The last question for our panelists, and I would like to start from Engineer Cevolini to ask him, in your opinion, as for future generations, how you can convey the love we feel for motorsport, and how can motorsport become eco-friendly? As for new generations, I think that we can involve them with this new technological evolution, this change towards electrification, because it's something new. And young people, of course, are attracted by what is new. Of course, it must be fascinating, it must be passionating, and also it must be based on competition. As for the Moto E, so the e-bike championships, you have a short races, but it is really competitive, and you have the same format of the e-pole. You have a kind of super pole that is really fascinating, and races are really challenging, and they can offer great show. And then it's highly interactive. You can interact in a more immediate way, and that's another important aspect. What was the other question? So how can the motorsport become more eco-friendly? Franz Tost was referring on how the electrical energy is produced, but if we consider in Europe the energy production mix is towards, is focusing more on the renewable energies. So in the end, when you have an electrical product, the performance is higher. So if you fit it with an eco-friendly energy, your result is becoming better and better. And of course, motorsports must consider the electrical competition with Moto E Formula, so e-bike, and the hybridization that was created in Formula One, because it's a combination of combustion engine plus the electrical motor. So I agree with my colleague from AlphaTauri. We are talking about a green transition, and to have a smooth and sustainable transition, you do not only have the electrification, you have the use of biofuels, which represent an alternative to reduce the emissions. And they are very interesting for the motorsports because they allow us to use endothermal engines, but adapted to the specification of such fuels. And so this represents an important possibility, together with some technical regulation focusing on improving the effectiveness of engines and performance of engines, so in order to reduce the emissions. And of course, the electric seems to be the final solution, but it is going to require time, because even if you have to manage interesting categories, and that's true both for 4 wheels and 2 wheels, the current technology doesn't allow us to, compare our results with the top categories due to technological limits, for example, in light of the weight of the batteries and so on. So I think, as it happens in all technological fields, the solutions will evolve, and we will see that electrical powertrain will replace the endothermal, not for a political choice, but for a technical choice, because they will be more performing. I always repeat, we move from horses and carriages to cars, and then cars used to brake every now and then. And so at the beginning, since the technology was not highly performing, so people remained with horses. So it's a matter of time. As for Lamborghini, Engineer Galante. Sustainability is a key factor even in our company, not only from the emission point of view or the use of the reduction in the use of fossil fuels, but as Mr. Costa was saying, the evolution is towards synthetic fuels in order to have an alternative to electrification. But sustainability is not just reducing emissions, but also it has to do with the life cycle of the vehicle itself. So what the electrical vehicles has in itself is a set of components that can grant an eco-friendly and sustainable life cycle, because we have to remind that the EV has a polluting power, exactly as the internal combustion engine. So the sustainability concept must be considered at large, altogether. So not only from the point of view of polluting emissions. So synthetic fuels or biomass derivatives represent an interesting alternative for the future. They, of course, can be tested in the racing field. We can make some experiments. We can, of course, boost the research. And this is a parallel pathway to the endothermal engines. Franz, in your opinion, we know that next year, together with this massive change in regulation in Formula One, you will need to increase the use of synthetic fuels in percentage, and parts of the car made of natural fibers.
Absolutely right. Honda is already working on this, and we have on the dyno quite good results. And the FIA and all the teams with the fuel suppliers are really working very hard that we, as soon as possible, get 100% synthetic fuel, because the target is to push for sustainability, that we are 100%, I call it now, clean from 2025, 2026 onwards.
Grazie mille, Franz. E ultimo, ma sicuramente non per...
Thank you. Last but not least, Engineer Šimeka, You also asked about the involvement of young people, and so this project of the scooter is an idea to, involve young people in competition with this type of vehicles. The number of young people who want to take their driving license is worrying. So young people need to move around, need to, of course, moving in the city, but they also have another need. And so you have this higher integration between gaming and racing. This is another important way of attracting young people. So you have new electric categories where the duration is limited due to the battery charge, but it is integrated with the gaming. And so this combination would for sure attract young people to motorsport or to retain them. As for the sustainability, it is a more complex issue, because if we consider the environmental impact of a championship, for example, in the e-Formula, the impact in its life cycle of the car, it's really limited. So we are investing in new materials. Scooters will also be produced with a natural fiber, therefore ensuring a positive impact for its entire life cycle. And we are planning to use more sustainable recyclable materials. And the same thing for organizers and all the motorsport leaders. We have this request to turn championships into carbon neutrals, because of course the transportation is what impacts more on the organization of racing, of a competition. So we'll do our best on the development of this product. So thank you very much. Thank you I would like to thank the audience here in the law department in Modena, and then our attendees, and thank to our panelists. So thank you very much, and see you next time.